Spurs, a proud sponsor of Supersport's Let's Play initiative.
Hello from another edition of Inside Off-Road. We turn back the clock to take a look at the recent Himan Auto 400 at Tabanchu in the Free State, with the race the 7th and penultimate round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship.
The impressive Black Mountain Hotel on the outskirts of Tabanchu provided a colourful backdrop for the Himan Auto 400, with off-road racing returning to the region for the first time since the early 90s. After 2 years in Bloemfontein, the decision to move the race to Tabanchu provided the cream of South Africa's off-road talent with a fresh challenge.
For Bloemfontein-based Rubicon Racing, the opportunity to race in their own backyard saw the team field 5 cars in the production and special vehicle categories.
Ja, dit is lekker om na by die huis te ry, dit is lekker om local ouens te wees hierso. Ons het 'n vol span, Gerald en Hendrik ry weer in die klas E bakkies, ons het 5 bakkies hier naweek wat ry, 5 karre. So ja, dit gaan 'n lekker naweek wees, dit is lekker om na by die huis te wees.
The Black Mountain Hotel lies in the heart of the Morocco Game Reserve, with the area offering some of the most spectacular scenery to be found anywhere in the world. The region also offered the off-road fraternity with a route taking in a variety of terrain.
Ja, dit is, die mense ken die Vrystaat as plat, maar hulle sal hier naweek agterkom, die Vrystaat is nie 'n plat plek nie. Hier is lelike koppies en lelike berge en lelike dale. En ons al lang reguit stukke wat deur die veld gaan. Die stuk waar ons ry is trastgronde van die ou Botswana. Die veld is mooi opgevreed, daar is nie lank gras nie. Dit is droog, so nee, ek dink dit gaan lekker wees.
Privateers are the backbone of the ABSA Off-Road Championship and are largely responsible for the impressive growth of the sport in recent years. Among their ranks are the father and son team of Graham and Trevor Leith.
I suppose it's the key difference between a privateer and a factory team is that, in my case, I think a lot of privateers, when the money's there, you race. When the money's not there, you can't afford to race. It's part and part of business. We can't take our eye off the ball there, and we race when there's spare cash around.
The lease campaign, the Transcore Ford Ranger, which was one of the original cars built for the factory Ford racing team and has since been extensively modified.
This is one of the first Fords that Neil built to race the SP class. We used to run a V6 4-litre. When the rules changed and we were allowed to run V8s, Ford was good enough and they gave us V8, so we upgraded. The rest of the car, what we did is when we put the V8 in, we completely rebuilt it. And the only other major change is that we moved the cooling system to the back of the car, try and get some weight off the front, and also a bigger radiator with the V8 to try and keep the temperature down.
The Transcore and other Ford privateer teams work closely with the factory Ford racing operation, while South African National Off-Road Association moved to cut costs, provides for cooperation in other areas.
We get very good parts pricing from them. And obviously when they did the deal with the V8s, we got the V8 and we got the body kit, the latest body kit. They helped us there. And the interesting thing in this sport is that, although it's a Ford, they run very similar components. So we're based up in Midrand. So if I've got a problem, I can take it to Glyn. Glyn's guys, they advise, the gearbox is identical. Glyn will rebuild the gearbox for you. Glyn's got spares. So it's actually quite nice the way the whole thing works out.
The 3 teams involved in the production vehicle and Premier SP Class Championship battles produced an enthralling Donaldson prologue to determine grid positions for the Himan Auto 400. Just 4 seconds separated the trio, with Team Castrol Toyota pair of Anthony Taylor and Chris Birkin leading the field away at the ceremonial start. Out on the route, Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were soon into the lead in the Ford Racing Ranger, with the former South African champions holding their nerve to withstand some serious pressure from championship leaders Duncan Force and Rob Howie in the second of the Team Castrol Toyota Hilux entries.
An early puncture dropped prologue winners Taylor and Birkin down the order in the Team Castrol Toyota Hilux. The pair fought their way back to finish third after a tight battle with veterans Hannes Grobler and Henny ter Steege in the RFS BMW X3. Grobler and ter Steege will retire at the end of the season, but a rock-solid performance saw them home comfortably ahead of off-road legend Alfie Cox and German co-driver Jürgen Schroeder in the SP Lazen Nissan Navara. In a tense finish, Cox and Schroeder were only 4 seconds clear of Sun City 400 winners Christian de Ploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren in the second RFS BMW. Right on their heels were Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable, with the second Ford Racing Ranger only 6 seconds behind the RFS BMW. Next up were Mike Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson, with the Region Racing Nissan Navara hampered by an engine misfire.
In only their second outing in the Regent Racing Nissan Navara fitted with a V8 engine, Terence Marsh and George Smalberger produced a steady performance to pick up another top 10 finish. On a route that called for constant vigilance, there were sections that demanded extreme caution.
The final top 10 placing went to veteran Archie Rutherford and Paralympic swimming legend Natalie du Toit in the SA Warranties Nissan Navara, racing under the Regent Racing umbrella. 2 punctures on the first 170-kilometre loop of the race saw to it that the pair had to push hard on the second leg. Rutherford and du Toit were the last of the SP class finishers, with an accident putting the Rubicon Racing pair of Piki Labuschagne and Rikus Erasmus out of the running. Also classified among the non-finishers were Graham and Trevor Leith in the Transcorp Ford Ranger, and it was not a happy event for the Rubicon team, with Bloemfontein crew Loda Brain and Rian Kralung also among those to fall by the wayside. A broken gearbox put paid to Gary Bertholt and Ralph Pitchford in the Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux, and a huge accident saw the Forces BMW crew of Willem Vos and Werner Weiss lucky to escape serious injury.
A faultless performance from Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst saw the Ford Racing pair score their second win in a row. The late-season charge by the former South African champions ensured that the production vehicle and SP class title fights would be settled at the final event of the season on the West Rand.
Down to the wire now for the last race. I didn't work out the final tally, but I think if they drop their points and we drop ours, we still like 15 points behind them. So it's going to be close.
The gap between Duncan Vos and Rob Howie and Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst in the SP class is 12 points and sets up a nail-biting climax to the championship race.
On now to the Class D and Class E battles, where championships were also there for the taking. In Class D, former champion Cliff Weichelt and Johan Smalberger were in a strong position in the N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser, with Australian resident Weichelt flying to and from Perth to compete in races.
Yeah, I think the last 2 races we have to just finish now, because we've had our off race that we can drop for the year. So we just got to finish here in the points, and that should seal the championship for the year then.
The Donaldson Prologue to sort out grid positions for the race produced a close tussle between Cliff Weichelt and his son Louis, with the pair out in identical N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruisers. In the end, only 11 seconds separated Weichelt Sr. and Johan Smalberger and Weichelt Jr., who had Marek Besadenhout sitting alongside him. Behind the 2 Class D entries, KwaZulu-Natal crew Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker came up with the best performance of the season to win Class E in the X-Factory Ford Ranger. In Class D, brothers Johan and Werner Horn were 36 seconds off the pace in the Mullilan Toyota Land Cruiser, with reigning champions Jack and Cyril Oosthuizen around 4 minutes further behind in the LMC Land Rover. A subdued performance from runaway Class E leaders Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens saw the 4x4 Megaworld Toyota crew over 4 minutes behind Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker, with Michael Fine and Dewald Hutton completing the top 3 in another Toyota Hilux. A little further back were Deirdre Cutting and Quibus Creer in the Transcorp Toyota Hilux, with the pair hampered by a power steering problem.
Back at race headquarters, there was plenty of work for service crews as they went about restoring their chargers back to full health in preparation for battle the next day. A maiden prologue win for Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker provided them with a boost in confidence.
Yeah, very good, eh? It was very fast. We had to look out for the rocks and ant hills. But yeah, we had a good turn, good times.
The first loop of the race saw the Class D battle catch a light, with championship leaders Cliff Weichelt and Johan Smalberger chased by Louis Weichelt and Marek Besadenhout, with seconds separating the 2 N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruisers. On their heels were brothers Johan and Werner Horn, who were on a charge in the Mullilan Toyota Land Cruiser. The Horns had made up early ground and now had both the Weichelts firmly in their sights.
At the front of Class E, the KZN pair of Rowan Lamb and Lyle Parker were building on their prologue performance in the Ford Ranger. The Ford was comfortably clear of championship leaders Dirk Pitter and Koos Claessens, with the 4x4 Mega World Toyota pair looking for their 7th win in 7 races. Behind them, reliability specialist Jack and Sarel Oosthuizen were a solid 4th in Class D in the LMC Land Rover.
At the 15-minute compulsory halt at the end of the first lap of the race, the Class D battle was now between championship leaders Weichelt and Smallberger and the Horn brothers in the Mullerline Toyota Land Cruiser.
No, it's going well. We had a clean run this far, and the Mullerline Toyota is right on our backsides. It's going to be very hard for the second lap, but I'm sure we're going to make it. Car's in good, strong still, and we can't really complain. It's a tough race.
The Lamb Parker Ford Ranger arrived at the designated service park with its Class E lead intact, but championship leaders Pitter and Claessens had upped the pace in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux, and not far into the second loop swept into a 44-second lead. When Pitter and Claessens homed in on then Lamb and Parker sportingly moved over to give the 4x4 Mega World crew a clean run to the finish.
There had been a change of lead in Class D. Weichelt and Smallberger had run into problems, and Johan and Werner Horn had taken the Mullerline Toyota Land Cruiser into the lead. The Weichelt-Smallberger Land Cruiser was showing battle scars and was just over 23 minutes behind the Horns. Weichelt and Smallberger also came under late attack from Jack and Sarel Oosthuizen, who were only 14 seconds in arrears in the LMC Land Rover. There was a close battle between Fine and Huttung and Gerald Leroux and Hendrik Badenhorst, with the Rubicon Ford eventually finishing around 3 minutes ahead of the Toyota Hilux.
The final Class D and E results with Dirk Pitter, Koos Claessens and Rowan Lamb, Lyle Parker coming in ahead of the trio of Class D cars, led by the Horn brothers, who after a couple of near misses scored their first win of the season.
A 6th win in 7 races for the impressive Pitter and Claessens saw the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux pair wrap up the Class E Championship.
Nee, dat is met de tweede plek wegspring vermoorde en 4 minuten achterstand. Het is glad nie gedink was het 'n kans om die achterstand in te halen nie. Die stof weer eens het ons redelijk gepla, al die competitors gepla. Dit was 'n onbegonnen taak geweest, maar ons het geweet ons moet maar net moet by mekaar skraap in die bakkie voluit ry en net op die pad bly, want daar is redelike klomp cautions geweest langs die kant.
A second place on the Himman Auto 400 was enough to see Cliff Weichelt and Johan Smallberger make sure of the Class D championship. Outgoing champions Jack and Sarel Oosthuizen are now under pressure from Johan and Werner Horn, with 3.5 points separating the crews. In the Class E standings, Pitter and Claessens are well clear of Lamb and Parker, who are in their first season of national championship competition.
It's time for the first stop on the 2012 campaign trail. With so many candidates vying for position, it's anyone's guess as to who will emerge the front runner. The SA Open sets the stage for their first appearance, a venue that demands both strategic and technical dominance. Will last year's leader head the pack, or will there be a shift in power? The 2012 Sunshine Tour. Who's your swing vote? Only on your World of Champions. The SA Open brought to you by City of Ekurhuleni and Gauteng Provincial Government.
They've stayed the course, they've weathered the storm, and now they have one last chance to make it count. Who will be the last man standing? Watch the Super 8 final as Thabiso Mchunu takes on Dani Venter on Supersport. Your World of Champions, proudly sponsored by Nashua.
The Telkom Knockout. One team, one winner on Supersport. One sport has the ability to change fans to fanatics. And one show.
Let's catch a preview for excellent racing. Like Formula One.
With one passion.
Absolute F1.
Will explore the world behind the wheels. Join Sasha and the boys for absolutely everything you need to know about Formula One. Absolute F1 every Wednesday before the race. Only on your World of Champions. Brought to you by Petronas Syntium. Available at selected engine outlets nationwide.
Welcome back, and time to meet Natalie du Toit, who became the third sports celebrity to co-drive for Archie Rutherford in the SA Warranties Nissan Navara.
I think, randomly, one of the people that I know actually came out and, said to me that they're looking for a celebrity to be involved in this event, and I said, okay, sure. I think over the last 3 weeks that I've known about it, it got more and more high profile. But from that perspective, all I can do is go out there and have fun, and just to say, thank you for the opportunity. I've been in a vehicle, I've loved every minute of it, and, it's a different sport, and it's great to be involved in something completely different.
One of the most recognizable personalities in world sport, Natalie du Toit is a Paralympics and Olympic Games swimming legend. Out on the route, there was plenty of support for the SA Warranties crew, with Natalie following in the footsteps of Proteas cricketer Vinnig Afani de Villiers and rugby springbok Stefan de Blanche.
Two punctures on the first of the two 170-kilometre loops that made up the race were a setback for Rutherford and du Toit. The SA Warranties Navara pair then fought back strongly on the second lap to gradually work their way back through the field.
I think yesterday was the prologue, and I don't think it sort of set you up for today's race. Going out there, I was a bit nervous. It was 3 hours. I don't know if I could cope on the road in 3 hours. But I think the adrenaline kept me going, and it was absolutely fantastic. Got a very despondent on, sort of 30 k's into the race when we got a bit of a flat tyre and had to change the tyre. Lost quite a bit of time, and then we got a second puncture as well, so had to stop for that as well. And coming into the pits, I think, both of us just said, no, we're going to do this now, we're going to go for it. And I think for that perspective, we came back a lot stronger, a lot harder. Had an amazing time out there. I think, hopefully I got better and better as the route went on. I got to see a little bit on the second lap. But I think for me, it's just to say thank you for this opportunity. Being a swimmer and coming out here, getting involved in cars. A lot of people are a bit scared of amputees as well, or should I say disabled people. And for me, it was absolutely fantastic. So I think to say thank you to Terence Marsh and his team, and the sponsors that sponsor the team as well. It's been an absolutely fantastic 2 days, and I just got to say thank you very, very much.
The second lap fight back ended in a highly commendable top 10 finish for Archie and Natalie, who was a major hit with off-road fans and fellow competitors.
South African off-road racing has a high profile worldwide, but it is a pair of brothers from the Democratic Republic of Congo who bring an international touch to the ABSA Off-Road Championship. Eduardo and Ricardo Agazi have made sporadic forays into the ABSA Off-Road Championship, but are planning a full campaign next year.
Motorsport here in South Africa is very off-road motorsport is very strong, so it's difficult to, because we stay in DRC, so it's difficult for us to manage the car, to manage the service, to manage, so we will improve the way to come here every race for the next season.
The Orkazi brothers have wide international experience, but are impressed with the standard of competition in the ABSA series.
The level is very high. The guys on the front are very quick. My brother and me, we must learn more, because we usually drive in the rest of Africa. We were in Dakar 4 times with my brother. We do Tunisia, Morocco, Pharaon. We made the last time we made 9 overall. But for me, the drivers of South Africa are very, very fast. I think if you take, I don't know, 5 drivers here, they can be in the top 10 on the Dakar, sure.
Going into the Himan Auto 400 in Tabanshu, the special vehicle and Class A championships were also delicately poised. It had boiled down to a fight between the Motor White Bat pair of former champion Evan Hutchison and Dani Stassen and the Atlas Copco crew of Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson. The two crews had each picked up a single win during the season and arrived at the race as the only Class A teams with 100% finish records. After 6 different winners in 6 races, brothers Lawrence and Gerard du Plessis broke the mold and in a dominant performance won the Donaldson Prologue and then scored their second race victory in a row.
Championship leaders Evan Hutchinson and Dani Stassen went into the race intent only on finishing ahead of Johan van Staden and Mike Lawrenson, and second place was mission accomplished. There was a bonus for the pair with Motorite Bat teammates Nick and Ryan Harper picking up a second podium finish in a row to act as a buffer between Hutchinson, Stassen and van Staden and Lawrenson. The Atlas Copco team did well to fight back to fourth after a puncture on lap 1 set them back on their heels.
After running as high as second place in the early stages of the race, reigning special vehicle and Class A champions Herman and Wichard Zwoelwald gradually slipped down the order in the Elegant Fuel Porter. Punctures were their biggest problem and 3 flats doing nothing to help their cause. Behind the Palabora father and son team, Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzar put together a solid race to finish 6th in the Century Racing CR4 and bag useful championship points.
The local flag was kept flying by the Bloemfontein crew of Peter Ruthven and Leander Pienaar in the Rubicon Bats, with their pair edging out Marius and Yolinda Fourie in the PHB Bat by 20 seconds. Punctures were also a problem for the Fouries, who were lying second at the halfway mark in the race. Behind them, KZN crew of Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell fought back after early problems in the Gibson Racing Porter, and brothers Eduardo and Ricardo Argazzi completed the top 10 after a solid race in the iCare Travel Bats.
Brothers Daniel and Lo Zili lost a little time helping other crews in difficulty and finished just outside the top 10 in the Orange Works Porter. The Zilis were around 3 minutes clear of KwaZulu-Natal crew Daniel Brooks and Gavin Gray in the Ducatis Property Bat. Brooks and Gray are regulars in the KZN Regional Championship and decided on a full-time move into the ABSA National Series. There was a high attrition rate, with Brooks and Gray passing a string of stranded crews that included Neil Mayer and Joseph Lewis in the Liqui-Moly Zarco, who were the last of the classified finishers after losing wads of time with an engine problem.
League of Nations crew with Botswana driver Keith du Toit teaming up with Lesotho navigator Ashley Thorne were amongst the non-finishers in the White Star Racing Bat, along with 2-time South African champions Quinton and Cully Sulvalt in the Elegant Fuel Bat. A skirmish with the Zili brothers was paid to, with Botswana driver Mogray Mabili and Zelda Nemant and Lesotho crew of John and Sharon Moore also failing to see out the distance in a Chenoweth. The Rubicon Bat in the hands of brothers David and Gary White was sidelined. They had steering problems, while a disappointing string of non-finishers continued for Steve Parker and BZ Van Sale in the Sizanani Gymco.
While Lawrence and Gerard du Plessis capped a dominant weekend with their second win in a row, championship leader Evan Hutchison was more than happy.
Yeah, we came here in the lead. I think we had a 7-point lead and we're going home with a 14-point lead. So that was exactly what we came here to do. Was to stay ahead of him and take points home. So, yeah, I think when we drop all the races, all 7 done, I've been probably 9 points ahead, which is better to be 9 ahead than 9 behind.
Hutchison and Stassen will take a 9-point lead in Class A to the final event. The du Plessis brothers are in a strong third, with 3 points separating the Harper and Sulvald father and son combinations.
Next up on Inside Off-Road, the Class P and Class B categories, with moving the Himan Auto 400 to Tabanshu, making sure the championship contenders went into battle on a level playing field.
It is. It's a new terrain for everybody, so yeah, we're very excited. Unfortunately, we've drawn quite close to the start, and with the route not being marked, we think we're going to be charged with opening up the route for everyone. So yeah, we don't expect to be the first Class P car come end of prologue.
On the Class P championship front, everyone was chasing Century Racing CR3 flyers Colin Matthews and Alan Smith, who took to Tabanshu what looked to be a comfortable lead.
We're still chasing Colin, but I think he's got the gap on all of us. The dice now is between Fuller and Kutsia. we've got to close the door on them. This is the second last event. We're 2 points ahead, and yeah, we've got to perform at this event, or else Fuller's going to clip us at the end.
Class P Championship leaders Matthews and Smith were the pre-race favourites, and no one was surprised to see the Century Racing crew win the prologue. But at the end of the 60-kilometre route, they were only 33 seconds ahead of the Regent Racing batch of Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy. Matthew Smith and Fuller Murphy set a cracking pace, and third place Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne were 4 minutes off the pace in the race on Exarco, with John Telford and Jaco Swart another minute in arrears in the Calcimite batch.
While the Century Racing CR3 of Matthews and Smith went through the scrutineering process, elsewhere in the pits, service crews were busy working on the other Class P contenders, with attention to detail often the difference between winning and finishing nowhere. An old off-road adage dictates that races are often won in the workshop.
When the race got underway, there was early drama, and within 10 kilometres, Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy found themselves in the lead in the Regent Racing bat. They were there courtesy of a ditch which ripped the right rear wheel off the Century Racing 3R3 of Class P Championship leaders Matthews and Smith. It was a major setback for Matthews and Smith, with the second non-finish in 3 races, doing nothing to improve their championship aspirations. Telford and Swart also went past the stranded Century Racing pair, with the father and daughter combination of Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne giving chase in the race on Exarco after dropping behind the Calcimite car.
On the second of the 2 laps that made up the race, Fuller and Murphy were firmly in control of Class P proceedings. A string of solid results and non-finishes for Matthews and Smith had also brought the Regent Racing bat crew into championship contention, with the Calcimite bat of Telford and Swart failing by the wayside. Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne took over second place in the race on Exarco. They were well clear of the Men's Health International Zarco of Nick Gosler and Andrew Massey, whilst brothers Keith and Andrew McInerney were to incur the wrath of race officials and were excluded from the results for receiving outside assistance.
At the back of the field, KwaZulu-Natal crew Leon Botma and Quinton Brand took the Class B honours in a bat, with the pair having plenty of time to spare over Sidrian de Villiers and Dwayne Voigt, who bravely soldiered on in the little UTV entry.
Final results saw Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy take the honours by nearly 4 minutes from Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne. Nick Gosler and Andrew Massey completed the podium, but were a long way back.
It was a timely victory for Richard Fuller and Dennis Murphy, with the Regent Racing crew breathing new life into the Class P Championship. In an exciting finish, the title chase was now going all the way to the wire.
It had to be done. We needed the win this weekend to keep ourselves in contention this weekend. In the championship, makes the championship a bit more exciting going into the last round. Colin's still got quite a few points on us. He's got about 13 odd points on us, but we're comfortably in second, and obviously the top of the podium is what we want. So we're going to go out and try and win the next one. And we don't wish bad luck on anybody, but we want to win a championship.
A 13-point margin is the cushion Colin Matthews and Alan Smith will take to the last race. Coetzee and Sandra Labuschagne are a further 10 points in arrears and have an 8-point advantage over John Telford and Jaco Swart.
And finally, next up on the ABSA Championship calendar, the season-ending Gold 400 at the Kloof Country Club in Glen Harvey on the West Rand.